Today I am talking to the very lovely Gemma Overend, and we are talking all about how to feel less overwhelmed in business. Gemma and I share our top tips for being more organised and ways that we have learned to better manage our time. We also chat about the significance of setting boundaries and how to stand strong with them, and prioritising personal and family life alongside running a business. So let me tell you a little bit more about who Gemma is and what she does. Gemma has been in business for over 12 years. She started her cake business when her children were 4 and 2, and within the first year, both her and her husband left their jobs to run Gemma's Cakes full time. They've come through all the challenges of running a business, including the pandemic, Brexit, and the cost of living crisis. Since starting a business from zero, Gemma has encouraged many others into the world of business, and in 2023, Gemma launched a creative business club, an online membership for all small business owners to come together for community support and encouragement. Oftentimes women and men too can feel like it's impossible, but Gemma teaches that anything is possible if you just make a start and go for it. So before we dive into the good stuff, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to tune in to Show Up and Be Heard, the podcast that exists to help women like you simplify your business and your life so that you can stop feeling so overwhelmed. I am your host, Becky McAvoy, owner and founder of Be Heard Socials, and I am an award-winning social media marketer and international speaker who specialises in content strategy and organic growth on social media. If you want to cut through the noise and BS and get practical, actionable advice tailored specifically to make social media marketing accessible and easy to understand, or if you want to be part of a supportive community where women entrepreneurs can feel connected and inspired to achieve their dreams, then keep listening because you are in the right place. To be the first to find out when new episodes go live and to get more tips like the ones you hear in this podcast, make sure you join my email community through the link in the show notes. And whether you have followed me for a while or you are brand new here, I am so grateful for you. Right then, let's get started with this week's episode. Hi Gemma, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
You are very welcome. I'm really excited to have a chat today because we were just chatting before we started recording, wasn't we? That there's not necessarily a theme today, but I think as we chat, a theme will become very evident. So I'm quite looking forward to just having a little bit of a chat. But before we get into any of that, and I go off on a tangent like I tend to do, obviously we've just heard a little bit about who you are from your bio, like all the official stuff. But do you want to tell us a little bit more about your story, sort of like how you came into business? Like, did you always want to be a business owner? The fact that you have 2 businesses. Do you just want to tell us a little bit about you and your story outside of the formal bio?
How long have you got? I'll try and keep it as short as possible. Because I suppose I'll go back a little bit. I always want to have a business? I think I did. I did always. I'm one of those people who I don't really like to be told what to do, and I don't like to have to ask for time off work and everything. So I did dabble before starting my business. I did party planning, things like that. So kind of self-employed. And then it was about 12 and a half years ago, I officially started into the world of business. So I fell into it accidentally. I made my daughter's 4th birthday cake, and then Gemma's Cakes was born. At the time, I was working in sales. I was a wedding planner in a top hotel here in Northern Ireland. And I loved my job, but I had 2 small children. Olivia, my eldest, was turning 4. Jack was 2. It was really busy, as you all know. And, childcare, things like that. It's all a juggle, and you don't want to miss things because you're at work. So as I say, it started accidentally, but I was kind of keeping my eyes and ears open to see what else I could potentially do. So as I say, I just decided, the cake tasted okay. Let's maybe start a business out of this. And so Gemma's Cakes was born, as I say, and I spent the next sort of 9 months or so working like crazy. Anytime anyone ordered a cake, I found out how to do it, and I did it. And then I left my job because I just had to make a decision. and something had to give. And then 4 months later, John, my husband, he left his job as well. So he had, when I left my job, he kind of said, well, I'm coming home every night. Could I not give you a bit of a hand here? Show me what to do. But I thought, by the time I show you what to do, I could have done it myself. I'm not the best delegator. But I did show him what to do, and he just took to it. And he was in a job he didn't like, and he then 4 months later left his job too. So 12 and a half years later, we are still in business together. We're still married as well. We'll be married 21 years tomorrow. So it's all good. It's all fine working with your husband.
That's incredible. But that's incredible on so many levels. Firstly, to be in business 12 and a half years later is amazing. With everything that's happened in the world in the last 12 and a half years. I love the fact that you were we're still married. Because I can't imagine, I share an office with my husband, but the idea of working with him would drive me up the wall. But lots of people say to me, I couldn't share an office with my husband either. But I love all of that. And I think that's the reason I like asking that question so much, especially because of the people that come on the podcast, generally the people that listen to the podcast, so many businesses sort of happen by accident, even if you wanted it. And a lot of that comes from childcare and the need for flexibility and all that kind of stuff. But I love asking it, because then they're like, and 12 and a half years later, I'm still here. And that's such an incredible achievement. So I just think it's amazing. And you've also got a membership now as well, haven't you? So alongside your cake business.
Yeah, so that's relatively new. So it's just a year since I launched the club, the Creative Business Club. I was working on that for about 6 months before it officially launched. So it's so funny, because the year that I started my cake business, it was about 6 months after I turned 30. And when I started the Creative Business Club, it was about 6 months after I turned 40. So there's a lot to be said for these big birthdays, these milestones. They really get you thinking about the next thing you're going to do. So yeah, it's a bit of a coincidence. But so yes, I decided I wanted to have a membership. I never really thought I wanted to have a membership before that, but at the start of last year, I really felt like I needed a new challenge. So when you've been in business that long, I still loved my business, but it's not that it becomes easy. It just is second nature, really. So I thought all along, when I've been growing my business myself, I've had people ask me questions. I've had friends, they'll say they have this little hint of an idea of starting a business, and I am on it. I'm like, come on, you have to do it, So I am a bit of an encourager, and I've come to notice that being self-employed can be a lonely place. I didn't really experience that so much because I had my husband John, and we were able to kind of throw ideas at each other. We didn't throw cake at each other. It was never that bad. But if one of us was having a bad day, the other one could kind of pick up, the pace. So as I say, I have found that from my start of the club, that has been a big thing. People have been telling me, it's great, because I felt so alone in my business. Even just somebody to say, I'm having a bad day, can you help me out, or give me a push. So it's all online, and yeah, I love it. I am so glad I started it.
Yeah, which is amazing. And I also think circumstances change, don't they? So from 12 and a half years ago to a year ago, when you launched the membership, I think about that with mine. So obviously I have my membership, and my children are different age now. So their needs are different, and what they want is different, and all that kind of stuff. And it's being able to, I think it's a real joy of running a business, is being able to go with the circumstance that you've got at the time, or the stage that you're in your life, or whatever, and you can fit it around you. The podcast that's actually gone live at the point that we're recording this today was with Camilla Collins, and it was talking all about that, about it can seem really random that you've got like for her it was a beauty business, but for you, like with a wedding cake business and then doing what you do in the creative business club. But actually what we were talking about in that episode was like there's themes to it because you're driven by making people happy and wanting to help people, and like a lot of those things like that makes those two businesses the same whilst they can be wildly different as well. But it's like sort of who you are as a person. And for me, that's a real joy of running a business, is like, okay, I'm done doing this and now I want to start doing this instead, a bit like I've done with my done for you services this year. It's not like I'm never going to do done for you again, but right now I don't want to, and I can just drop that and start something different.
Exactly. And I think as well, it fascinates me how different things you've done in your life all lead to something else. They always lead to the next thing. So whenever I left school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I went down the secretarial route, which actually is brilliant for me now because, I can type properly, I can audio type, which is pretty useless nowadays. You really don't need audio typing. But, things like using a spreadsheet, that has all been helpful. And then obviously, the different jobs in sales, being in the wedding team, and then going into wedding cakes, even the fact that the job that I was in as a wedding planner 2 years after I left, that resort, that hotel asked us to be part of their wedding packages. So we now supply them with wedding cakes. And, it fascinates me. Everything leads to the next thing.
Oh, 100%. And as you were saying that, I was thinking about a live I did just before the summer, because I was asking people to ask me questions and then I was answering them, and someone asked how I got into social media. And I've always thought it was really random. And when I went on this live, I hadn't even really thought it through, but I started talking about it. And obviously, like when I left school, social media didn't even exist. So it wasn't like I could have wanted to do that. But as I started to talk back through things, I was like, oh my God, like all of this links to what was meant to happen. So I 100% believe that as well. So with 12 and a half years in business, what would you say, like I know you'll have faced loads of challenges along the way, because I know in like 5 years of 5 years in business I have. But what would you say has been the biggest challenge you faced? And I guess like, what did you learn from it, or how did you overcome it at the time? And would there be anything you do differently now?
So I'm sure a lot of people will answer this question the same. But for us, it was 100% the pandemic. Like, I am never going to be, like, that's never going to leave my mind, what we went through. But don't get me wrong, it had so many negatives, but it did have its positives too. So in terms of the negatives, I can just remember we were standing at a wedding show one Sunday, and like the news had just broke about the pandemic, and it was too late really for it to cancel the show. So we had all these cake samples that we were having to then get gloves and masks and everything to hand out. And was there even going to be anybody turn up? And I can just remember standing there that day thinking, John and I are both in this business. Like, what is going to happen to us? We are finished. Who is going to pay our mortgage? How are we going to get through this? And, thankfully we were okay. We had, everything was in place, that, we had our own premises and things. So we did get help from the government at that time, thank goodness. But I know there were so many people, and especially in the wedding industry as well, who just didn't have the help. But we got through that. It was challenging as well, because then we had all these couples who suddenly couldn't get married, and the pressure. And I always said, it taught me to write in pencil when I book in a wedding cake, because there was one wedding and I think I moved it 6 times, and they weren't just moving dates, they were maybe moving venues as well. And it got to the point where I just thought, am I actually going to even be able to do some of these weddings? And some of them didn't. Some of them just went ahead on, the random times whenever they opened up again, and you were allowed to have 25 people. Oh, it's okay, we don't really need a cake now. Or some of them did take a cake. So it it was pressure. And then we had the coming back, it was full on that next year, because we basically told everyone anybody who moved, we let them move, and we just slaughtered ourselves for a year because we had missed out on a whole year. 2020 was going to be the year of weddings. Everyone was fully booked going into 2020, like more so than usual. So it was definitely a shock to the system. When I say about the positive things that have come out of it, it really gave me space. Even though with all the madness of moving couples, I really needed to knuckle down and focus on my business. So it gave me time to kind of organize myself better. Like I love the whole, trying to put systems in place to half the time I'm spending on something, I looked at my client experience, and, how I was responding to people. And I always responded quickly, but I was never really considering myself in it all, there were no boundaries in place. If someone was coming over, I had brides all over the world. If someone was flying in for the weekend, they wanted to see me and they wanted to eat my cake. So I was just like, oh, I can't say no to this, but I now know that yes, I could. I just had to have it all in place from the very beginning, that it was communicated, this is how this works, so I have learned a lot for sure.
Yeah, and getting all of those systems in place and stuff. And I know you might have been half joking, but even what you said about it taught me to write in pencil, I really like that, right? Because I think sometimes when it's like, what did you learn and what were the challenges you faced and all of this kind of stuff, we feel like it needs to be this big momentous, is that a word? I don't know. Momentous? Anyway, we feel like it needs to be this big thing. And it doesn't. Like, it can be like, actually, by writing in pencil, it's made my life like much easier. And like I said, that's sort of like I don't know, flippant example, and you might have been half joking, but I really like that it does, not everything has to be like absolutely newsworthy things, because something like that, all jokes aside, can actually make your life significantly easier. And then it can go right through to, actually, I need to be more organised and I need these systems in place, and it's quite a big deal what you're sort of learning from it. But yeah, I just really like that not everything has to be massive.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, I was 100% serious when I said that. Like that was the thing. You had to just learn, these things happen. But also, like I really, looking back, was a bit of a hot mess. I had the bookings in the front of one of those A4 diaries where there's like a little tiny tab, for each date. And I was, but there were days I could have been doing 4, maybe 5 wedding cakes. There was no space. So, I mean, now I obviously have these like printed diaries with plenty of room to write, just little things like that. I mean, that sounds like a really, simple thing, but it, as you say, it doesn't have to be something complicated in order to keep on top of everything and keep things organized and moving quickly, because it frees you up to do fun stuff, to do the family stuff, and
And also, I love it when people give me some kind of really simple thing to do, because you can put it in action straight away, rather than go, and so what I needed was a standard operating procedure for this thing, which then takes you like however long, and it feels really overwhelming. Whereas if someone's like, do you know what, just write in pencil, like I just really like those simple like takeaways, alongside, like, obviously you will have learned bigger stuff, and alongside some of the stuff that takes more to implement. But yeah, I just think, like you said, like, so many people, and the pandemic will have taught so many people so many different things. Like I'd started my business like 6 months before the first lockdown, and so I didn't get any kind of like financial help or support with it. And I mean, I was very fortunate. My husband kept his job, like he was never furloughed, kept his job throughout, like all that kind of stuff. So thankfully we were sort of okay. But yeah, when I look back at that time, I just think, not that you have to learn, because it can just be, it was just a rubbish time. But actually, when you look back and you go, oh, actually, like even just sometimes in terms of mindset changes and shifts and that kind of stuff, going, oh, actually, do you know what? just the fact that I can survive. I lost most of my work, but I still had a business at the other side of it. So it was, so yeah,
Yeah, and
I love
I
that.
think a lot of us. I mean, obviously, I'm in the wedding industry, and so and I know from talking, a lot of the people in my club are in the wedding industry as well, because obviously I am. But you know, I think a lot of us were letting our businesses run us, and that's
Yeah.
where I think something just changed for me. You know, now, you know, I like to have a life as
Yeah.
well, and I feel like I should have a life as well.
Yes.
So yeah,
Well, and when you think back to like the reason we both started our business, when you were talking about your story, it was all about more flexibility, wasn't it? And I, just as you, I love that. I feel like that's like a soundbite. That's a piece of content about not letting your business run you. On the same kind of thing that I talk a lot about, like don't become your own worst boss.
yeah,
And I think sometimes things like the pandemic or other things that might happen in life force you to look at it and go, "Oh my God, I left the employed life to have more flexibility, to have more freedom, and I'm worse than I've ever
yeah,
been in terms of some of that stuff." And it does make you really look at that.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So you were talking a little bit about one of the things it made you do was get more organized and get more. Well, I don't know if it was specifically around time management, but I know outside of recording this, we've had a conversation around time management. Is there, what sort of things did you start to put in place, like post pandemic or during the pandemic, to make you more organized or to get you better with your time management?
So for me, I could be dealing with, you know, maybe 200 or 300 couples ahead of time, you know, like the next couple of years or whatever. And as I said before, I was a bit of a hot mess. I could be out delivering a cake and I wouldn't know whether I had seen all my brides for the next month or not. And every time I looked at my phone, I was thinking, oh, what is it now? You know, is there going to be somebody needing to see me this week? And, you know, I'm going to get no time to myself. You know, or is it going to be too last minute? So I actually I didn't go down the route of a CRM system, but kind of created my own. So I got into Excel because I knew how to use it. And I set up just had all my couples information in there, how much they had paid, how much was due, obviously when their date was. And I also then started to keep track of my inquiries too, to see where they were coming from. So now as well, then I start and do I have a quiet time. So weddings are seasonal. January, February is my time. January to April really is my time to meet with all the brides from that particular year, so that when I get to crazy season, May, June time, then it sounds awful, but I have peace to focus on what I'm doing rather than thinking, oh gosh, I need to see that couple tonight. You know, I need to talk about their wedding cake. But we have it all done, and then it's just a matter of me 4 weeks before the wedding sending final details. So that's my kind of system, and it totally works for me. And I think it's good for them too, because they get to the start of the year and all they want to do is organise their wedding. But sometimes there are other suppliers, like florist, maybe doesn't want to see them till closer to the time. And so I think it's a wee bit exciting, and they feel like they're actually more organised because they've done something, they've ticked something off their list. So I think it works for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's relatable kind of across any business that there is, really. And one of the things I really love, like you saying about like it was sort of your own CRM system, because a bit like what we were talking about before about like the simple tips, and it doesn't have to be really big things. I think, like, you know, you come into business and you start hearing CRM, customer relationship management, and you start hearing like all these different things that you should have in place, and it just makes it a bigger thing than it needs to be. Like, it can just be an Excel sheet. And I think kind of what you were saying, which I would 100% agree with, is it's about having it like, it's having a like one-stop shop for stuff, isn't it? So that you don't have stuff scattered everywhere. And for
Yes.
me, like, and I bang on about it all the time, but for me, that's Asana, and it works really well for me and I love it. But I know people that really don't get on with it. So they use Trello, or people that use spreadsheets or whatever.
Yeah.
And I love the kind of, like, I don't think this is necessarily what you were intending to do, but kind of the permission that it doesn't have to be this big fancy thing. Like I started using a financial like I started using Xero basically to manage all my accounts and my finance, whatever. And prior to that, I'd done it all on a spreadsheet. And the reason that I went to Xero was because the government was saying that we had to, basically, it had to be electronically recorded. So I was like, well, I loved my system, like with my spreadsheet. I was like, right, I need to get on that. I have never been more disorganized than I was on Xero, because it just blew my mind. I couldn't understand lots of bits of it. So when the government scrapped it, I came straight off it again and went back to my spreadsheet. And there was a bit of me that was like, oh, I should have, like, it makes me feel I suppose a little bit less professional or like not like a proper business to just have a spreadsheet. But it works for me.
It works.
And it's like, and I know other people that can't get their head around Excel. So use Xero or use QuickBooks or like whatever it might be. So almost that permission as well to go, do you know what, to get organised, you don't have to have.
No.
You just have to have what works for you, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's another really simple example. You know, it used to be people were contacting me through Facebook, they were contacting me through Instagram, email. I was getting towards the wedding day and being in an absolute panic. What did they send me? They wanted, what did they, you know, have I missed anything? Or where are they? I can't find them. So what I did then was I just simplified it and I just said, right, everything email. So if someone contacts me on Instagram or Facebook, they are directed to my contact form, and then everything stays on email. And don't even try to go on to anything else, because I will steer you back again, because it just, I mean, I have a little file for everybody in my inbox. And I just think that is such a no-brainer. It just keeps you all in one place. And it doesn't have to be complicated.
Well, I was going to say, I love you saying there as well, like, don't even try come somewhere else, because I will send you there. Because I do that with the Boss Your Socials Club, where I say, if you want to ask me a question, it even needs to be in the Facebook community or on emails. And naturally, because obviously it's social media, lots of people, or they'll see my stories or whatever, and they'll DM me and ask me something. And I constantly have to go back and say, can you put this in the Facebook group? Or can you email me this? And it's not, because it comes back to that thing earlier that you said about boundaries. It's like, I can miss it in a DM, whereas I won't miss it in the Facebook group or an email. But I think that can be like, and I know I have in the past, and I could probably put money on the fact that you have as well. And I know loads of people will have, but like, before you get to that point where you're like, no, like it needs to be here or here, otherwise I can't keep on top of it. You feel like you have to be almost everywhere for everyone, because you're worried that you'll lose business, or you're worried that you'll upset people, or you're worried that, you know, this, that and the other. But it comes down to boundaries, doesn't it? And ultimately it makes me way more professional and organised, because I actually answer a message than it does by me worrying about upsetting someone.
Exactly. And I have no problem with someone sending me a message for like chatty things, you know, but when it comes to organising a wedding cake, no, or checking dates or getting prices. And plus there's a word limit on Instagram. I'm a talker. I send like 1,000 words when I need to send 500, you know. So, you know, and other things that I've set up, you know, another thing that I have found really good is my appointment system. So I've moved everything virtual. I know there's lots of people who maybe after COVID, after the pandemic, just hate online, but I'm just like, it works for everybody. I can't be available for people to come to me all the time, and this just makes it a lot easier for the stage my kids are at as well. It's just much better for me. So again, like TidyCal, I send out my, you know, it's all done automatically. You know, it's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant as well. And I was laughing earlier when you said, like, I'm happy for people to message and chat, but about the word limit, because absolutely, like, I will have chats with people. It's just if they ask me something I have to answer, then I say, like, that I need to answer because they're a member, then can you email me or whatever. But I was laughing because Gemma and I chat quite a lot in Instagram DMs, and generally it's over a voice note. And Instagram does, as it stands, limit you to minute voice notes, and it's always like, I'm going to run out of time, I'll just send you another one. And it's like 6 or 7 voice notes. I mean, that's generally having a chat, isn't it? But yeah, you're right.
Definitely. My chats can turn into a kind of a podcast. I like to talk.
But I do think everything that you're saying, the really well, there's some key themes coming through, but it is just about what makes it work for you, isn't it?
Mm.
And like if that is a paper system where you do it all in your diary, or it's an electronic system, it's just having the system, isn't it? And sussing out, it's actually just having the thing in place.
Something that you can do, as you said earlier, with the whole zero thing. I don't do that. John does that because I hate accounts. I will not be learning how to do that because I don't want to have anything to do with it. But if it's something that you can do, I have my paper copies of my diary, and I have my my spreadsheet as well. But I love nothing better than a notebook. My house is coming down with notebooks. I just write lists and lists and lists. And to-do lists. I love a to-do list. And when I do something that's not on my to-do list, I write it on the to-do list and I tick it off.
I do that. I did that yesterday in Asana, because Asana tells you how many tasks you've achieved that day. And I was like, but I did these things too.
Yeah.
Show me. It's actually however many things.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I just love all of that. And I do think that's why I love having these conversations, because it is like find the thing that works for you, but have a thing, which whatever that might be, and then it's having the confidence, isn't it, to stand by that, and if someone doesn't like it, then they're not right for you, and that you're not the right person for them, because if it makes your life more difficult or more disorganized, or my life's chaotic enough without me making it more chaotic, it's being confident to go, no, these are my processes. So
and the thing is as well, what I have come to realize is, an odd time you get one that slips through the net, but if you are clear in the very beginning, this is how I do things, this is when you'll have your appointment, this is when you can you can talk to me in the club or whatever, if you're clear and upfront about that, then that issue shouldn't even come up.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's just all about the communication, isn't it? So I think that's like communication and organisation. Really, if you've got those two mostly sussed in business, you're all right, aren't you? Because if down the line someone's not happy with it, you're like, well, this was from the get-go, this is what you were told, my processes are, or how I work is, or whatever. So yeah, I love all of that. One of the other things that you said earlier that I really liked as well, was that I think it was January to April was your, that's your quiet time. And I think that's really important in business as well, is knowing trends. I was having this conversation with someone the other day, who was basically saying, I've just had a really quiet financial month. And they were freaking out about it. And it's kind of like a group we're in, and we were like, well, was that the case? Like, did you notice that last year? Was that a quiet time for you last year? And they're like, oh, I don't know, because I think they were sort of newer to business. And it is like, when you've been in business a while, it stops you freaking out about stuff if you actually track and know trends. And that January to April is quiet. So you can either meet with brides in that time, so it makes your life easier down the line, or take a bit of a holiday and a bit of a break.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's important to keep an eye on those things, because, as I say, I need that time too. Sometimes it feels like I'm working for nothing during those months, but I need that time to organise. Otherwise, when's that going to get done?
Yeah. But then I suppose you go into your, what you called earlier, I think, your crazy season, and it's just like you're not earning nothing if you look at it as like an annual.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. You're not.
There's so much just sort of mindset shifts in business that need to be made, doesn't it? That I think until you start talking to other business owners or listen to conversations like this, you're like, oh, okay, no, that's okay. I'm not completely failing. That's normal. And people's trends will be different. So if you see someone absolutely killing it on social media in a really quiet time for you, it's like, well, are your times of year the same? Do you even have the same business? It doesn't mean you're failing. It just means that your trends are different.
Yeah, it's and I hear this all the time in my membership. They'll say, I'm just so glad that it's not just me. Other people have the same challenges. It's like we all have the same things we go through, but maybe at different times.
Yeah, absolutely. And I literally went live in the Bossy Socials Club community this morning to have a chat about, if you've fallen off the wagon on your socials over the summer, Or well, basically what I'd said last week was drop a gif in the comments about how you're feeling about your socials right now. And there was some people absolutely all over it and they were brilliant, but some people were like, oh my God, the summer's just thrown me completely. And I basically went live this morning and was like, that's all right. Like, that's normal. It's summer. It doesn't matter. Like, here's some ways that we can just get, like, here's 2 or 3 things that you can do to just, like, simple things to get back on track. And I think, like, some people had commented on there going, oh my God, I'm so glad it's not just me. Like, I felt like I'd been so consistent and then I wasn't, and I just wanted to throw it all in the bin. So yeah, just that.
Yeah.
Oh God,
Yeah. It's
it's
like,
not just me.
no, it's not, and the summer is a big deal, especially if you have got kids. But I suppose
Yeah,
for me, I'm slaughtered in summer. You know, it's really busy with work. That's when the weddings happen, and
yeah,
so you're trying to juggle everything. So yeah, social media
yeah,
definitely wasn't a priority. But I think if you're okay, if you kind of make yourself okay with that, because you can't do
yes,
everything,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah. And I think one of the most powerful ways to make yourself okay with it is for people being vulnerable enough to be able to have public conversations like this, or to surround yourself, whether that be in memberships or communities or just like through making friends in business, to be able to have I just think that's the best way that I make things okay, is to go,
Yeah,
so this has
yeah,
happened, and everyone's like, oh yeah, that happened to me as well.
yeah, yeah. Hands up.
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that I ask every person that comes on the podcast, just in the nature of the podcast being show up and be heard, which is obviously all about getting visible and showing up in your business. What things help you show up in your business, and what tips would you give someone else to do the same? Because you are really good on your, like, putting yourself out there on socials and forward for things like this. But I think sometimes people can look at that and go, oh, Gemma's so confident, or Gemma's so this, that, and the other. So are there things that help you do that? Because I know, as someone who also puts themselves out there a lot, I am way less confident and more anxious than people think I
Yeah.
am about things. So what
Yeah,
sort of helps
absolutely.
you do that? Yeah, what tips would you give to people to do the same?
Okay, so yeah, I'm exactly the same. You're not born confident, you know, you're not born able to talk into your phone and feel like an idiot. Um, or not feel like an idiot, you know, you do get more used to it, but there's still days where you might record a story 3 times before you're actually happy with it going out there. But I think you just do need to put it bluntly, you need to get over yourself, and just get on with it. I would always say push yourself out of your comfort zone. I have done that from the very beginning. Like, I'm not comfortable. You know, I was nervous about coming on this podcast today, but I think a little bit of nerves is okay. It is just a chat. It's all grand. I'm still alive. And what is the worst that can happen, really? But that's one thing that I've always done. I've pushed myself beyond what's comfortable, because if you're not doing that, then I just don't think there's the opportunity to grow. It just gives you such an opportunity. I'm laughing because I'm looking back, thinking about the very first time I got started doing like videos, and I think I did actually start out on Snapchat, and I used, you know, the silly filters, you know, like the ears and things,
Like the dog
and it made
faces
your
and yeah.
skin, yeah, made your skin flawless and all.
Oh, the
And you know,
beautiful
I
filters.
had,
Yeah. No, I'm thinking
yeah.
of the ones that make you look ridiculous.
No, there was
But
those
yeah,
too. Yeah, the ears.
yeah,
Yeah, I know the ones you mean. But yeah, or like they put on this really squeaky voice. Those ones actually, you know, like even just carry on. I had little kids at that time. I had lots of stories to tell, you know. They would kill me now if I told any stories. But yeah, so I just kind of started off like that, and then just kind of thought, oh, this and that, and then you gradually kind of lost the filters.
yeah,
So, and then obviously, you know, Instagram is where I hang out the most now. But yeah, and I just think, like, as well, don't you know, watch too much what your competition is doing. Just try
yeah,
and stay focused, stay in your own lane, as they say, and just focus on you, because as you said, you know, everybody has different commitments in life. You know, some people have kids, some people are carers, you know, some people have loads of time spent on their business, some people don't. And you can't compare yourself to in that way. You know, it's just silly to compare yourself
Yeah.
when everyone is just so different. So focus on yourself and your own goals. Like, I love setting goals. That's another thing that I do. It gives you something to kind of focus on and work towards.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love that. And I think what you were saying about, because it's interesting, isn't it? I think the conversation around filters, like you could go on social media and there'll be people saying, don't use filters, be yourself, be blah, 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 blah. But actually,
Yeah.
I remember, and it wasn't on my work account because I had a personal blog prior to that. And I used filters all the time, and sometimes the stupid dog ones and the silly voice ones,
Yeah.
but also just the ones that made me look better, like the ones that gave me the perfect skin and gave me a glow and put makeup on me when I didn't actually have makeup on. And I think that's like, and I don't use those at all now because I don't want to. I like to try and give as real a picture as I can. However, I always advise people as well, like if that makes you feel more, if the difference of you posting a story and not posting a story is using the filter, then use the filter. Do what makes you feel comfortable until
Yes.
because like you saying, and gradually, well, we've both let that go, and it's because you get more confident.
Yeah.
Like you might
Yeah.
not be fully confident, but you do. I think you start to care, not care less, because that sounds
You
like I
do.
don't care, but you start
Yeah.
to.
I think it's an age thing as well. Do you not think, you just sort of, as they say here, wise up
Yeah.
a bit? You know,
Yeah.
like, it's not that important, like, yeah, and I don't like the sound of my voice, but but so
Yeah.
what? What you say might actually help someone else, and
Exactly.
you
Or
know, on the
inspire someone else.
yeah, and on the filters thing, I don't use them. Like, I would now and again use one, but it's what you're saying. It is, if I didn't use a filter, I might not go on that day.
Yeah.
So if I was having a really like, but I needed to go on and say something, then I would just stick a
Yeah.
filter on, and so what?
Yeah, exactly. And so what anyone thinks about
Yeah.
that. It's more important. We said like, oh, somebody might need to hear what you say or someone might be inspired, but also you might
Hmm.
sell something. Like from a
Yeah.
business point of view, if you don't go on and talk about it, you guaranteed not to sell the
Yeah.
thing.
And,
Um
it's like, it's the difference as well whenever it comes to even starting a business or not starting a business. It's more thinking about, like, in my club, I have some humanist celebrants. So, they're obviously being a very important part of someone's special day. And I just think to myself, well, if they didn't actually start that business, that couple wouldn't have, and all those people in that ceremony wouldn't actually have benefited and
yeah.
got to experience them. So it's just, and just like, don't be in such a hurry, to get to the end, because
Yeah.
slow and steady wins the race, I think.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And yeah, like do whatever the things out there that help you are,
Hmm.
do them. I always make a
Yeah.
joke now. And I will go on my stories now without makeup. Like not all the time, because sometimes I'm just really not feeling it. But if it
Mm.
is just that I'm absolutely fine in myself, but I've got no makeup on, and I used to go, "Oh, sorry about the state of me," and then I started to make a joke and go, "This is my face."
Yeah. Get used
I'm
to
like,
it.
I'm gonna stop apologizing for my face because that's like it. So yeah, absolutely. I love that. And then the final question before I ask, like obviously all the like where people can come and find you, because I'm sure they love you, is what advice would you go back and give yourself in the early days of running your business? So like 12 and a half years ago, Gemma. Not the advice
Mm.
that don't go into business with your husband, but but yeah, what advice would you go back and give yourself?
I would say I would 100% tell myself that I do not need to work with everyone. Because when I first started out, I wanted to make a wedding cake for everybody. Like, I didn't care. I just thought everybody should book me for their cake. And experience has taught me that that is not good for them, and that is not good for me. Because you need to get to know your person, like your ideal client. We hear it all the
Yes.
time, your avatar. You you know And, I maybe used to feel a little bit, oh, they didn't book me, whereas now I don't even think that way. I just think,
Yeah.
we're just not right for each other, or I don't even really think about it at all, because I have systems in place on my website that when someone inquires, they should know whether I'm right for
Yeah.
them or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I would tell myself. And the same again, just don't be in a hurry. Just build it
Yeah,
as it goes.
I love
Yeah.
both of those things, and I feel like it's a really beautiful way to bring the conversation almost full circle.
Yeah.
But it's been absolutely brilliant chatting to you. I Before we go, do let people know, where can people come and find you? I know you said you mostly hang out on Instagram, but
Instagram.
your handles and
Yes.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So Instagram is where I'm at. I am at the _creative business club. And I'm also Gemma's Cakes blog, but I tend to these days be hanging out more on the Creative Business Club page. So yeah, you can find me there. And yeah, that's it.
Amazing. And do go check her out, because she posts wonderful stories, and she is
Oh,
well, and that's really where we got to know each other, wasn't it? Through like meeting at events and stuff, but through chatting through social
yeah,
media.
yeah,
Um,
uh-huh. The
so
power of
yeah,
social media is brilliant, for making
yeah,
connections. It really is. That and being in
yeah,
memberships, obviously. But I think it's a great place to start. And
yeah.
well
No,
done you on the
100%.
podcast as well. I just think you're amazing. Well
Oh, thank
done.
you.
You've done
Didn't even
great.
ask you to say that, so thanks.
Pay me later.
Yeah. No, honestly, thank you so much, and do go check Gemma out on both her pages, because she is very, very lovely. But yeah, thank you so much for giving us your time today.
No problem.
And yeah, thank you so much for listening to Show Up and Be Heard. But please don't go without telling me your name. I genuinely love meeting new people and making new connections. So if you don't already, I'd love it if you'd come find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook and drop me a message to say hello and let me know what you thought of the episode. The link to all my socials are in the show notes. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode or found it useful, then I'd really appreciate it if you could take just a few minutes to give it a review on whatever platform you are listening on, because every one I get really does make me do a little squeal and a big happy dance. Finally, more than anything else, please always remember, realising that you're not actually meant to do this stuff alone is the first step to making it easier. So I'll see you next time.